access, also known as Luvs. I'll be your host. You guys will see my beautiful hands at work. Today we're going to be covering the basics of tagging. It's a very elementary, rudimentary, easy way of doing it. And we're going to be learning about lines and shapes primarily, and how to kind of add your funk and style into it to create your own tags. Hope you enjoy. Peace.
Alright, y'all. Make sure you have I recommend a cup of orange juice, because orange juice is good for you. Extra pulp. You already know it's good. Okay. So the basics. I mean, tagging is the essence of graffiti. That's like the birthplace of where it all started. Without people tagging, we wouldn't be where we are now. And so understanding this as a foundational jump off point, I think to me is really crucial. Everything stems from what you can do at the simplest form. So let's start with the super basics. Let's take the word basic, for example, and we'll break it down. So I always try and start off by writing everything as like simple and as like legible and boring as possible. I also write in all capitals. You don't have to write in all capitals, but it helps for now when you're starting off. So okay, remember, actually let's switch it up. Let's do boring, because we want to keep it just super boring and super basic. Boring. Okay, boring, basic. If you can this, maybe you could follow along. You can write your name, you can write whatever you want, just as long as you're keeping it very, very, very boring and basic. Okay, then we start to break down that each letter form is actually just a line. Like literally, look at an I. An I is literally just a line. An O is a line that's curved, but it's still a singular line. All of these letters in our alphabet and all these characters break down to just lines and shapes. When you start to think about letter forms like that, that's when you really start to open up your mind to the possibilities of changing letters to whatever you want them to be. What I want to start with is breaking down like the anatomical structure of a letter form. So if you look at letters like B's and R's, and you can start to identify this in other letters like N's, they all have a vertical line right here. This is the spine of a letter. You see that? Right here, right? All of them start with that. This is an A. The A is an angled spine, right? And what I want to play with is basically taking those lines that are vertical, and we're going to start to angle them. This is the very, very boring, very basic beginning of a tag. However, this is so crucial. I can't express how crucial it is to experiment with the way you angle your letters. So we'll start off with this B. I take this B, and this spine is normally vertical. I'm just going to simply angle this, okay? And instead of angling my B like this, I'm going to keep it straight. If I angle it, then I just put it. If I angle it, then I just put it on an angle. It's not that dope. But if I keep this spine angled and I keep these straight, all of a sudden you're creating a different language with your letter forms. It's saying a different thing. These have two different personalities. Okay? Let's try that again, but we angle it forward. So this time we take the same thing, take the spine, we're going to angle it forward. And then again. So let's do that with the rest of these things. We'll start with the R here, because I'll come back to O. Angle the spine, drop it in. Okay, I, N. Okay, let's come back to these O's. Do these here. Okay, actually, I don't know why I skipped the O. Cut that, forget that, I'll come back and do that. The O, you can just basically take the O, and I want you to just imagine stretching it. So take it and like push it this way, okay? So I'll take an O, and we'll angle it. And we'll angle it here. Same with a G. Cool. I know you're thinking, man, this is really basic, this is really boring. Why am I even watching this video? But I promise you that this is just the beginning of letter forms, and studying your basics will help you develop into a better writer over time. So even to this day, I still do this. Every time I write a name, I'll start off by the very boring basics, and I'll break it down. I'll go through the cycles of experimenting. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's move on. That's kind of got on lame. Okay, ready? Save paper if you can. Use the back of it or whatever. For this purpose, so you can see clearly, I'll just I'll use a new sheet. The next thing I want to point to, maybe you've seen it if you've ever been on Microsoft Word, or you for some reason are a typography nerd such as myself, and you would know this, but if you don't know this, be prepared for an ultimate mind blow. No, I'm just kidding, it's not that exciting, but I'll start off with an A. Here's an A. This is a basic A. Now this, sometimes in some fonts, and you may have seen this, they'll have these ticks or little lines at the bottom of the ends of letters or where letters combine. This right here, you ready? Are called serifs. Wow, right? Mind blow. This comes from the word, or this is a font you may have seen called sans serif. Sans in Latin means without. So the font that you have been writing in most of your life is a sans serif, unless you're extra fancy and constantly do that. I mean maybe you do, but that's all you though. As a graffiti artist, we take these serifs and we play with them as well. They create more opportunities for us to bend and play with letters. You guys remember the boring basics? I'm sure you have forgotten already. We started off by defining that each letter is broken down into certain lines. So we take a B, 1, 2, 3, that's 3 lines. When you add serifs to it, you have more lines to play with, which means the letter can become more complicated, even at the basic form of like lettering, which is what we're learning today, the tag. So we'll take the A. Basic A has 3 lines. You can create 6 lines out of using serifs, but the serifs is basically where you finesse. Like, this is where you could flex. This is where you add personality and style into your letter forms. So not only can you add style by like angling a letter form. So let's take an A, a basic A, and I'll angle it. Right? Boom. Already has more sauce than this one. You know? This is like a boring A. This is like I'm an A, but I got some lean on me. You know what I'm saying? And you could play with these serifs here. So I'm gonna take let's say the bottom serif here, this one, and add it to this one. But instead of having it straight down, what if I angled it up? Okay, and see this top one here, instead of having it straight on top, what if it comes off a bit and maybe it angles down too? Oh my gosh, right? We just created our first graffiti looking like letter. That's a basic A in terms of graffiti, and all I did was I took these serifs, okay, and I angled them in different ways. This is what I want you to do to experiment. Maybe pause the video, but basically you're just gonna write your name out. So let's say again my name is let's pick a random thing around my room. Okay, I got a piece of duct tape here, so I'll write tape. Let's say my name is Tape. That's my graffiti name. And I'm gonna write my name again, this time with some serifs. If you don't know how to find these serifs, again, typically they are at where lines end or intersect, and for some letters they actually just come past it. So like B's, E's, B's, R's, E's even, you can do them. You know what I'm saying? Just Google a font typewriter, or Arial sometimes it has it too. So check it out. Yeah, look for your serifs in your name, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna play with your serifs. You don't have to use every serif. Personally, I find it a bit too complicated when people do every single serif, but experiment. You might like it. Have your fun with it. But all I want you to do for the next, maybe like give yourself like 10 minutes. So pause the video and try rocking your name in multiple different ways and playing and moving with your serifs. Again, angling your letters is the easiest way of stylizing. Actually, before you pause it, like, let me show you this real quick. Okay, so I'll take this tape. I'm gonna angle it this way, and then I'm gonna angle it this way, and then I'm gonna play with my serifs every time. Make sense? Okay, cool. Watch, check this out. So I'll start with the T. Remember the spine of the letter is here, so I angle that. Okay, chop it off the top flat. T, trying to make sure it doesn't look like a J. This A, I'm going to angle this as well. The P, maybe it has one down there. The E, and boom, master tape one. It's already looking pretty hard. These little extra things we're going to get into, but all I want you to do is take your name, angle it, play with your serifs. It seems really easy, but I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm still learning new things every day, so you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I may pause the video at this point and try it out. So far, again, let's recover what we got so far. Boring basics, right? Simple lines, angling it. Then we learned about serifs. Okay, we got the serifs. We angle our serifs and play with our serifs. I think a lot of graffiti artists get caught up on making the letters look like a New York style letters, and we'll get into New York style letters. And obviously, that's the birthplace of the graffiti that we understand as graffiti. So I see why there's a lot of influence that still comes from that. However, being a millennial in hip hop and being a person who's studied it for the past 10 years, graffiti is way bigger than what it started, and graffiti really is becoming whatever you want it to become. If you're a practitioner in the game and you're starting out, you know, you're going to be the next generation, and you don't have to keep it. To me personally, you don't have to keep it as it was. You can take it and it can become your own thing. So that's the only way a culture can grow, in my opinion. So take what you're learning from here, apply it to your own thing. Take what you don't like, what you do like, and learn. You know, have fun with it. Learn what you like. So we'll keep going here. So far, those are the 3 things I taught you. What I want to share now is probably the hardest part of tagging, and it's called composition. So the composition of a tag is how the letters work together. So like I said, each letter is important on its own, right? But if each letter is completely different, then you're not telling a story from one end of the letters to across. You want to be able to have a clean narrative that everyone can see these letters and that these letters relate to each other. That's really what makes a clean piece. Unless you're intentionally saying that one letter matters more, or one letter is, you know, written differently to express a certain thing. But typically, you want a clean tag that is legible from one side to another. Legible in terms of style, like all the styles are consistent. So this is called composition. Okay, let's bring it back to the super duper, your favorite word, boring basics. I'm gonna look around the room. Okay, I got an avocado here, so I'll write avocado. Again, I'll write it out just the most boringest basic way. Avocado. Y'all think I'm hipsters, but I've been eating avocados before they were cool. That sounds really hipster too, so okay, I'm just gonna stop. Avocado is a long word, so I'm gonna take voca out of it, which actually means to speak. It's kind of a cool word. If you have a super long name, try and shorten it to like 4 or 5 letters. The more letters you have, the longer it's gonna take you to keep developing. And so when you're first starting out, it's good to have the 4 or 5 letters so you can like finish a piece in time and finish a tag in time and like not get discouraged halfway. You know, it's just something to think about. So okay, voca, here we go. So I'll take voca, and the most basicist, is that a word? The most basic composition right now is what it is right now. All of these letters are pretty much equally spaced, pretty much the same size, all the same height. Okay? What I mean by composition is the way that they're laid out and played with. So say for example, if I took voca and I put them this way, all of a sudden I'm saying something very, very different from if I were to tag this way versus this way. This is the composition of the letter forms, and as a graffiti artist, you should be able to work with letters at any angle and still make it dope. So all I want you to do, take your name now and play with the way you're placing them on the paper. Okay, these are all different compositions. All of these different compositions should find themselves, because when you're looking at graffiti in terms of painting on the street doesn't lend itself to you as a clean canvas all the time. The street are very random places where people fit in tags, and that's why graffiti has changed so much from just being like on a piece of paper to being able to be versatile and put it on any surface, any place. So far we've only been covering with very basic, like I'm using a studio marker. I don't even know, some cheap marker I got from the dollar store, but it's just a thin basic marker. All of everything I've done so far is completely different depending on what material you're using. So we'll get into some chisel tips and I'll show you some of that. And yeah, you know, even pencils or like pens will give you completely different outcomes. But back to Voca here. The most basic and common composition for tags looks something like this. So you'll start off with like a really big dope letter. So Voca, I'm gonna do like a cool V. I'm putting that in quotation because it might not be that good. Okay, cool. That's a V. Your O, your C, or anything in between is pretty simple. Okay, and then your A or whatever letter you end with, you want to be almost a mirror image of this letter here, or equal to size or style. So I'm gonna take this here and boom. Okay, Voca. Let's try that again. There it is again. Let's try that one more time. So these are your basic styles. We'll do another word here. Let's see. Laptop. I'll use laptop. How about that? Another long word for you guys. So big letter to start with. Simple letters in between. Okay, and I want to balance out my beginning with my end. So these two are kind of an anchor point of the letter of the composition. We'll do one more word here. Let's do a mouse. I have a mouse here. Not like a rat. I meant like a. Here, I'll show you. There we go. Logitech. Don't be hitting on my tiger mouse. Okay. So simple in the middle. Boom. That's a better example of it. Mouse. So we got a big letter, simple in the middle, big letter. This is the most basic, easiest composition. We can make this more and more complicated too if we wanted to. Mouse. Cool. Okay. Each letter form in our alphabet as we know it. Let's do the word mouse here. Each letter in our alphabet, as we know, here in the Americas, breaks down into the three basic shapes. What are the three basic shapes again? Triangle, circle, You guessed it, like Dora the Explorer, square. So I want you to look at whatever name or word you're writing, and how do you break down your letters into these shapes. So if you look at mouse, you know, you could say that these are two triangles. Okay, if you look at this one, well, you guessed it, it's an O. It could be a circle. This could be a circle as well, right? The S is a complicated one. You could say that it's two circles, two rounded objects, right? The square for the E. So if I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, we got two triangles, two circles on top of themselves, and a square. Very different than how we usually look at letter forms, right? Remember I said earlier in the boring basics that they're simple lines, but these simple lines create shapes. And learning to master these shapes will help you develop good composition. So I personally don't mind the way it is right now. The circles in the middle, just the ends need to have a good balance to me. So what I want you to do is take your name and try and play with it in these really simple patterns. So I'm going to take mouse and I'm going to make all of them into triangles. So how would that look like? So boom. Okay, they're all very, very simple triangle mouse. Then I'm gonna try that again with circular letters. So how can I make this all very rounded? Right, and you guessed it, we're gonna try this again one more time as a very squared version. This looks really easy. I've done this, like I said, for many years. So don't feel discouraged if you're trying this and you can't figure it out. It's creative problem solving. That's what graffiti lettering is to me. It's like a puzzle. You create the problem and then you figure out how to solve the puzzle. That's what makes it super fun, I think. And that's why I've done it for so many years to pass time, because, you know, to this day I'm still solving puzzles. Like, how do I make this E look better, or why do I like this letter, or why do I not like this letter? So then once you've done this multiple times, start messing around with combinations of letters. So taking the composition of a single letter form and stretching that out. So say I take this M here, right, and I make the first one a bigger triangle and then this one a little triangle. That's very different than if I were to make the first one a little triangle and the second one a big triangle. See what I'm saying? So these are really simple ways of playing with the composition of a letter form within a single letter to create it. Then I take this and then I'll add serifs to it. You know? Okay, I'm making these letters on the spot, just so you know. You can take this letter form and add a curve to it. So what would that look like? So let's say I drop this here, and then I'll have a curved coming off of it. That's an M. And again, these are letters I'm making up on the spot. So it just comes around with playing with it with time. And then say I like this here, I want to extend this more and exaggerate it, just for the camera. So let's see what happens here. Boom. So that's my M. Cool. Let's finish this off. So we got M, basic O, S, or U S. And I'm gonna make my E, like I said, middle simple, make the E balance out this thing. So let's see how we can do that. Maybe it comes in. So we got mouse. Cool. Okay. These three shapes here are basic shapes: triangle, circle, square. This isn't scientific or anything. This is something that I just kind of thought about, but I feel like to me it makes a lot of sense. Are all, for me, they kind of relate to certain, maybe deep down inside we can associate them with certain things, will help us remember this. So a triangle is sharp. I think innately, maybe in childhood you touched something sharp and you were aware of that it causes pain, so we use our instincts to kind of stay away from sharp things because we once got hurt. maybe even in a primitive state, we became aware of this shape as a dangerous shape. If you look at New York type letters, a lot of people are gravitated towards these sharp letters because they want their piece to look dangerous or like scary or like, you know, like it'll cut you. That's dope. That's his own thing. Circles are the opposite of that because there's no sharp edges to it. They're just completely round. If you think about round things like bubbles or basketballs or avocados, you know what I mean? Like these things are like great things that aren't gonna really hurt you. So they're to me representative of water, the flow, the consistency of it. Our earth is like a huge percent of it is water, and it's also a circle. So the circle to me has always been representative of water, these kind of two things that balance each other out, fire and water. And the square, this is my stretch, so let's say it's not scientific, but this is my stretch. The square to me is like earth. I find it really grounding. Buildings are made from like a firm foundation, usually like a square. So I like to represent earth as like a square, like it's very grounded, a grounded shape. And it balances out these two other shapes as well, the triangle and the circle. Yeah, all of these things tell you different things. You can also say this is like man-made, so like robotic type styles. As you're developing your tags, be considerate of what you're trying to say. Say I did want to make my name sharp, for example, and I want to make sure that my letters look really sharp. So boom. I don't like it, but whatever. That's sharp. Okay? If I were to write sharp in a really soft, delicate way, even like going into lowercase to further accentuate the idea that it's not as dangerous. You see the difference here between these round letters and this sharp letters, and the styles between them, how they further accentuate the story that you're trying to tell. If I do this again one more time, I'll write sharp, but I'll make it squared. It could have a totally different meaning. Okay, so maybe pause the video at this point and play around with your three basic shapes. Figure out how you can get your letters to fit in certain shapes. Mess around with doing a full name in a single shape, and then playing with the composition of a singular letter, of how to mess around with that. One more thing on this topic while we're talking about shapes. Some letters are more complicated than other letters, just by nature of the way we learn how to write them. So let's take an O, for example. An O is one continuous line which creates a circle, basically. This is a super complicated letter to make interesting because it doesn't give you anything to play with, versus an R, capitalized, has so much more to play with. You know, we got a triangle. When you break this down into the basic shapes, we have a triangle and a circle, right? Cut in half, you got an R. These are two shapes to play with versus a singular shape. What I want you to do is to take these shapes and switch that around. So what if instead of I wanted to make a circle and a triangle, what if I made it a square and a triangle, you know? So what would that look like? Okay. What if I wanted to make it a circle, but I wanted to, you know, like, let's just see. Right? Okay. The O can be broken down obviously into square or triangle. They're all legible. This is really about how you angle the shape. So my name is Moses. It's spelled M-O-I-S-E-S, but I'll take the I-O for right now, and I'll show you how to play with an O real quick. So we'll start with an M. I'm gonna do a squared M and then a triangle M. So squared, triangle, and then for my O, let's make it a square. And I'm gonna stay consistent with my style here in terms of squares and triangles. and I'm gonna flip this S upside down. So I got square at the bottom, triangle at the top, square at the top, triangle at the bottom here. And so you can see here that, oh, I dropped the I anyway, my bad, that I played with two shapes, squares on an angle and triangles upside down or the other way around. But there's a consistency here within my letter forms, and it tells a clear narrative of that the artist who drew these letters thought about the shapes that they create. To me, that's the beauty and the balance of art, of creating letter forms, that you want to be able to show them that you've messed around with every style, and like you're playing with the concepts here. It's not just scribbles. A lot of times graffiti artists, especially tags, people don't give it the right respect because they don't understand it, and they'll easily dismiss it because of the illegality of it. But there's a complete incredible art form that happens within letter forms, within tags specifically, that people are very unaware of. Another thing you can keep doing, if you are enjoying this, take the concept again of just these are basic lines, and how do I make these more interesting by adding a wave to them. So say if I take this first one here, that's the spine, and if I curve that one, right? So keep it simple in the middle. I'll remember not to add my, oh, that's a curve there. Right, cool. And I get to play that with that one more time. So I'll show you with an R up here. Let's take this R here, and I'm gonna bend this part here. See how that goes. So there's an R. Alright, so let's get into some chisel tips here. I'm using these Dollarama Pipsqueak washable markers. They're small, they're cute, but they do the job. This is my favorite, one of my favorite colors is brown. Yeah, let's get into it. So the chisel tip, if you've never used them before, they're dope because you get two different types of strokes out of it. You know, you get your basic stroke, and you get, if you put these on an angle, you get a broad stroke. Now the reason this is important is because when you draw letters using a chisel tip or broad stroke, you get a very different effect than the straight up line. So this is what I said earlier too, depending on what type of material you're using, you'll develop different letter forms. So let's take the word bonsai. I have a bonsai tree here, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm gonna start by angling my line again, and I'm gonna use the chisel tip, right? And so automatically you see there's a curve that's happening. These curves are very simple. I'm just using flat and then down, and then I swoop it. This takes some practice. Consider the way you're holding the marker, the angle of it, depending on the angle you're doing it, can give you a different effect. So these are really good with highlighters too, but let's finish this up. So this is a very basic on an angle bond, and I'm gonna play with some composition here, and I'm gonna do psi underneath it. Cool. Okay, what I want you to do is, if you have a chisel tip, or you can somehow get one of these, even any Crayola marker, that's where I started with, just take the marker and put it on an angle and try and make vertical lines. We're gonna do horizontal lines and then curved lines. So vertical lines are like this. Okay, practice the flick so you can come in and down and out. Okay, and then we'll try horizontal lines. So okay, and then curved lines, or C curves, S curves and C curves. This is pretty much the dopest part of the chisel tip, you can see over here on the S, it's very much like a calligraphy type style where it goes from thick to thin. Or here on the B, that's like, it takes a lot of practice again, but you know, practice makes perfect. So let's try this. So C curves and S curves. So I'm just gonna try to drop a C. Notice that I'm not moving my wrist with it. I'm keeping it in one position, right? And that's what gives it the thick and thin look, okay? Draw some S's. Okay, cool. So play around with this. This is like advanced, so don't feel discouraged if you don't get it right away. It took me a long time to master this. I want to jump in right now to like, I don't even know what they're called, to be honest. So many different names for them. I just call them like extra things, but it doesn't sound that cool. Maybe you can make up a name that's cooler than that, but we're gonna call them extra things for now. These little extra doodads are kind of what bring together a tag. So let's use the word paper for my tag. I'm gonna write the word paper. Or Pape. Shout out to Pape Station. And these extras come in different forms. The most super basic one is the underline. So you could do a basic underline and boom, now I have a statement. The other ones are the quotations. So 2 lines this way, 2 lines this way, and then the one last one that needs to become basically the essential to a tag is these 4, is the halo. Right? So we have all 4 sides as well as our name in the middle. This completes a straight tag composition, right? The other things you could do are stars, the asterisk to be specific. Okay, you can do them upside down. And then very super common is the arrow. The arrow to me is a whole other complicated issue, but a very basic arrow, you know, and play with these in different places, play with these compositions of where they go. So say I drop the arrow off the bottom instead. Right, and maybe I put the asterisk here. Right, okay, we'll keep playing with this. These things, just like letters, are just lines, and these lines also need to be played with and funked around. So if you take the asterisk, for example, and we add a curve to it, and or a serif, it creates a different type of star, which is dope, right? So check this out. That's the serif here, serif there. That's a very common one. The other thing is you can also start to add waves to it or curves to it. So I'll take this bar here and I'm gonna curve this one. Okay, so mess around with that and you could drop it into a tag. Just remember, these are extras. They are not what makes the tag dope. What makes the tag dope is your actual letter style. These complement it, but you need to be able to have strong letters before you have all these extra things, because you know some people get caught up on making sure that their extras are dope, and that's cool too, but personally, to me, nothing beats the hands down. Okay, so welcome back. Now we're going to be covering the basics to, they're called pieces, which is short for masterpiece. And this is like typically what you would see, like a full scale graffiti piece is like, well, you'll see it, but you'll recognize it maybe when you see it. But it's basically just a blown up tag. That's the best way to break it down. I'm gonna show you from like the very basics, basically, to how to keep developing it and create things that are unique. So let's start with the really basics. I'm drinking some kiwi juice. I know it sounds kind of weird, but kiwis are lit, so I'll write the word kiwi. K-I-W-I, and I'm purposely leaving some space in between here for the demo. The first question I'll ask you is, how many lines does it take to make a K? So we got 1, 2, 3, and we do that for every letter. 1, this has 4, this has 1. Cool. Okay, the reason that this matters is because each line, when you take them from a tag into a piece, each line becomes its own bar. A bar is basically just a box around a line, but what I'm going to show you right now is called the bar structure. So I'll take a K, and this first line around here, this spine, I'm going to make a box around that. So that's my first one, and I have 2 more lines, and these kind of intersect. It's kind of an interesting line to start with. So I'll come in here, okay, and the back of that one connects to there, and this one connects to this one. And notice that all of my bars have equal thickness, right? These are all the same width, okay? And this shows consistency with the letters, okay? The I, you basically just trace around it. The W here has 4 of them, so I'll do my bars all the way around. Sorry, it's kind of tight here. Kind of a bad example. Boom, and boom. Okay, this looks pretty messy, right? All you're gonna do now is take whatever color that you did your bars with, and you'll fill in your piece. Once you fill in your piece or your bars, you're almost pretty much halfway done. Okay, I'll just stop there and I'll show you what the next step is. This is very basic, very classic graffiti straight letters is what it's called. Is the style I'm showing you now. Then you would come with a secondary color, typically darker, and you would go around and outline your letter. You're like, okay, Luvs, this is pretty basic. I think we get that. That sounds cool, but let's actually do something dope. Okay, so I'll take the K. And remember, we learned in our previous video how to tag, and this is why tagging is so crucial, because now what you're doing is, instead of having your basic letters spelling out kiwi, you're gonna do kiwi as a tag and then do your bars around the tag, right? I'll take these 2 lines here. I'm also gonna play this one. I'm gonna have, there's a serif here, 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 and here, so I'm gonna play with these serifs, right? And instead of it coming off the back piece in here, I'm actually gonna break it off of here, and maybe it comes up too. Okay, so I'm kind of feeling this one. Maybe I'll do one more down this way. Maybe I'll make it a curved line just to add some different flavor to it. Okay, cool. So now I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, which is more complicated and more things to play with. I'll come in with my bars, okay? Anytime a line ends or intersects, you would put a perpendicular line to it, okay? And you can create your bars like that. And as long as you're keeping equal thickness all the way around, you should have a pretty solid straight letter piece. See how I'm doing this? Okay, this part where it intersects, the back of the bar, you can either go here or it can go here. I like to push it. So I'm just doing this nice and slow. These connect, so my bar actually would end here. And be mindful for things like this where it might get too tight. Okay. And my last one. Right. Okay, dope. Then I'll fill it all in. I'll do some really quick, I'll grab a fatter marker so I can fill this faster. Good old Pipsqueak Dollarama. Shout out to Dollar Tree. Okay, using that broad stroke, I'm filling this all in. Okay. And then we come in with our next marker. And we're gonna do our outline. And the outline, you just slowly trace everything on the outside. Okay, now what happens here where these lines intersect? There's two things you can choose. Oh, there's three things really. Either you can choose to ignore it completely and just trace around the objects, which means that they touch there, or I can bring this piece in front or this piece in front. Today I'm gonna put this one in front of the leg there. Okay. This is a style preference. There's a whole bunch of other ways you could do this. You basically do that for any bar. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm gonna pretend this one actually comes into this one and breaks down. Okay. You can do a slight version, like say I'll pretend this one comes in a little bit, and it creates the line that it comes in front of it. You see that? So even within your outlining, which is really, really hard to do with spray paint, you're creating dimensions. One letter can come in front, can go behind. I could even add another one there if I wanted to. Cool. So this is a really basic starter K. I took a basic K, I did my bars around it, then I restructured this K into a graffiti tag. Okay, and then I left you guys on K. Just kidding. Okay, yeah, and then I did my bars on that, and I added an outline to it. That's what we got so far. Okay, on to the next thing. So it's good to practice each letter individually, but when you're creating a piece, remember that we're trying to constantly create one full piece. Purple is one of my favorite colors as well. So I'm gonna write, I have some spray paint caps over here, so I'll write caps. So I'm gonna do it in the chisel tip style. I'll try and keep it a bit simple for the camera. And I'm gonna try and make this round. And notice here too, another thing is there's a consistency with my extensions or my bits here. So see how this one comes down, I balanced it out here. I also dropped one there as well. I should probably drop another one somewhere. Maybe it comes off the S here. Cool. Okay, cool. Alright. And then I'm gonna come through, I'm gonna do all my bars. So this has two bars, right? It has the little bit here and then this curve. So I'm gonna come in, drop my bars. And now when I've done my bars here in the last section, when I was doing the K, notice that I always use a flat line. This is really a style thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a flat line. Remember I was talking earlier about in my previous video, circle, triangle, and square. So these guys come back into play here because these bars don't have to be squared. You could make these circular and it'll give it a very different effect, you know? It's almost like a bubble letter now if I wanted it to be. You could also make it extra sharp and have extensions coming off of this piece. So I'll show you what I mean afterwards. So let me finish this one out here. And I'm gonna mix this up. I'm gonna keep the circle and squares for this piece. So there's infinite combinations of ways you can do this. I'm gonna make this one circular here. Okay, got this piece coming up. The other thing is, as you get more comfortable with it, you know, like I don't do my bars anymore. I don't do the tag out anymore. I just know the bar structure, and sometimes you can just freehand letter forms without having to worry about thinking about your bars. But when you're first starting out, you know, it's important to have an understanding of your bars, so you know that your thicknesses and all that stuff. So just for these purposes, I'll continue with the bar structure. And I'm going to balance this one out by making it curved up here. Okay, cool, y'all. I'll fill this all in. They're not the greatest markers, so you can see a lot of my lines, but that's okay. The other thing with your when you're working with markers is typically you want to use like lighter markers so you can draw on the inside of it and outline it with the darker marker, because outlining with a light marker is really hard because you can't go over the dark spots again. Seems kind of basic, but I figured I would mention it. Okay, cool. So caps. Took a darker marker like I mentioned. I'm actually gonna use a darker purple here, and I'm gonna outline it. Okay, interesting moments here, right, where the piece can intersect or go over. So let's say I'm gonna put this A in front of it here, but I want it to come in front of the C here, or I want the C to come in front of the A there. Okay, again here, the A, I want this piece, this little bar in the middle to come in front. So it's pretty basic what I'm showing you. Don't feel discouraged if you're not getting it. Just keep trying it. Practicing your bars, like I said, it's really important because it's the only way to like really understand how to do it freehanded afterwards. When you're painting on a larger scale, not on paper, it's also completely different. So having the understanding of bar structure is really crucial. I'm gonna leave this little opening here so I can say that these connect here. And maybe this one comes in front here. Boom. Okay, so we got our two things here. Ready? This is our fill. This is our outline. Now there's one more component which makes a piece. Okay, I put that in quotations because there's so many other variables you can add to it. But basically, the two things you need to keep in mind is your fill and your outline have to contrast this last step. This last step is called your force field. So if these are pretty cool colors, this is the best way to break it down. If your fill and your outline are cool, your background or your force field has to be warm. It's always opposite. If I were to put another cool color here, and I'll show you as an example, this blue, if I put this blue, right, versus orange or reddish color, the letter won't jump off the paper as much. So I'll show you if I put this blue here around the C as my force field. Now force field is basically just a one shot line that goes around the piece all the way around. Okay, and the goal of the force field is to make your letters jump off the page or off the wall. So if I'm not succeeding by putting a color that's too close to my fill or outline, that's not a tight force field, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna use an opposite color, right? The contrast is a bit more, and I'll put it down. Okay. So you can see that this red stands out more than the blue. Purple has both red and blue in it. However, this particular purple has more of this blue, closer to this blue hue in it than this red. If you want to be super exact, you could get yellow. If you have ever studied the color wheel, which I'm gonna show you guys in a second, this is a really helpful tool to help you figure out what colors you should be using. Not a lot of graffiti artists seem to care about this, and you know, word to them, but for me, I feel like piecing is an art form, and I feel like understanding the principles and the basics of art will really help you progress as an artist. And to me, I've always been about getting better. That's why I want to do it. So yeah, let me break that down. Alright, so here's the basics to color theory. You probably have heard this before. It's called Roy G. Biv. Right? Roy G. When I was in grade 5 and they taught me this, there was an I there for indigo, but we don't need it anymore. Alright, Roy G. Biv. This stands for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. Okay, cool. The reason I put them into this shape here, this is our color wheel. This basically helps us understand combinations of colors in the right way. This is based off of a rainbow, right? Roy G. Biv. This is our color spectrum. Color is just light. That seems like a really deep and confusing thing. But all you need to know for today is that these are the wheels. This is the color wheel, and we can figure out how to make patterns out of it. So our obvious ones here are red, yellow, and blue. Okay, these are our primary colors, right? Taking it back to kindergarten. All the other colors in the world are created by that. Okay, then we got our secondary colors: purple, green, and orange, which, if you can notice here, they're the combination of these two. Cool. Okay, the second thing you need to know, and this is probably the most important part for graffiti purposes, is that any color that is across from each other, so see red and green, these two colors are complementary colors. Okay, it means they complement each other. Now what happens when someone compliments you? You feel nice, you know what I'm saying? So this is what happens when you put these two colors together. They feel nice together. Scientifically, it just means that these two colors are the most opposite on the color spectrum, so therefore they contrast themselves the most. The same with black and white. Black and white are not colors. Black and white is like the absence of one another, right? If there's pure blackness, there's no light. If there's pure white light, there's no darkness. So these two are the opposites, and that's why they look so good together. Okay, so we can go around the circle and do that. We have orange here and blue as a combination, and yellow and purple. Yeah, sweet. Complementary colors go across, primaries, secondaries. Okay, and then one more thing to do. You can cut this wheel in half. Say I cut this way. Okay, these colors here are my typically warm colors. These colors here are my typically cool colors. Okay, these colors, when they're next to each other on the color wheel, these are called analogous colors. Analogous. Excuse me if I spelled that wrong. You know, I'm not that smart like that sense, but I'm smart in other ways, I swear. Okay, cool. So analogous colors. So this is a really cool, simple, basic way of doing a piece. So I'm gonna use these analogous colors here, red, orange, yellow, as my fill, and I'm gonna contrast it by using one of these cool tones, okay? So let's do a piece. So we'll start off with the basic tag. I'm gonna use my lightest marker, so my yellow. And I'm gonna write fire, see how it goes, okay? So overall, I'm using sharp but squared letters, okay? I'm gonna drop my bars in real quickly. I'm using the skinnier side here. Take your time when you're doing this. Again, I've done this like a million times, so I would highly recommend doing it slowly and taking your time with it. As you paint more and as you like spend more time in the book, you know, it becomes easier to mess around with it. But when you first start off, it's good to go slow and practice it, get it refined, you know. And this is also a quick demo, so this is a bit looser. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna fill this all in. Sweet, almost done filling. And then what I'm gonna start thinking about is my fill. So I know I said I wanted to use the other analogous colors, which again, ta-da, red, yellow, orange, as we know, are analogous. They're next to each other on the color wheel, okay? Roji Biv, right? And I'm gonna start thinking about how do I want to divide my piece. Now a really classic way to do this is to actually divide your piece into threes. So you can go top one's yellow, middle one's orange, bottom one is red. Easy as that. You could also do this sideways, which is not as common, but you can go red this way, orange this way to the yellow, okay? You can go red at the top all the way down, but for me, I'm feeling maybe we do red at the bottom. So when I'm painting a wall, I still do this because I find it helpful to have it more accurate before I blend it. So I'm gonna try and divide this by 3 by eyeballing it. So I'm gonna create a straight line that goes across this piece only where my letters are. So see, there's no spot there. Boom, and maybe ends about here, okay? And again, only where my letters are. I'll come through and I'll fill this in. Okay, this is a super basic, really classic way of filling in, of doing a basic fill. Now there's one more element I want to show you within our fill, which you may have seen and been wondering about. A lot of people do bubbles on the inside of a piece. I don't know who popularized that. Well, that's an interesting word. But for some reason it's stayed around for forever. So yeah, the bubbles are dope because it gives you a good shape to work with. Circles, I like circles, but you can also do whatever you want. Because we're doing the word fire, I'm gonna draw fire instead. You could draw stars, you know, you could draw whatever, basically whatever you want as your fill, as long as I'm staying within my 3 colors I chose for my analogous color scheme. I should be fine for whatever I'm doing inside. So today I'm going to do some flames. So, you know, I'm just going to ride up my piece down this way. Okay. And I'm trying to make sure I have it balanced so there's not too much fire in one section. Okay. Then I'm going to come through with this one, and I'm also going to bring this one up here. And I don't want the flames to look too crowded, so I'm pushing them over. Maybe I'll just kind of skip a section, but I'm always keeping it balanced. So there's a little one here, maybe I'll try and fit one in here. Cool. Okay, cool. That's my fire piece. And now I'm gonna outline it. So people typically use black. I just like using any dark color. I could use a purple here if I wanted to. I'm gonna use this dark brown. So this is where we make decisions of what comes in front, what goes in behind. So I'm gonna come this way, and that doesn't look dark enough. Let me see if I have another dark one. It's okay, it should work for now. And notice that I'm using my broad stroke to do my outline this time. Okay. Pick up the base here. So another thing you want to think about too is what color then you're going to use for your background. So if I look back at my color wheel, I know that I've used this side. I use all of these warms. And if I want to contrast my letters, if I want my letters to jump off the page, then I'll use something in these ranges that are more cool. So looking at my piece, you know, fire, it's like orange. What's the opposite of orange? Well, complementary would be blue. And also because I want to contrast, and I've used a lot of sharp and squared shapes, and even in my fill, you know, it's very dangerous or like warm or like hot. I want to contrast it also by shape and concept. So I'm gonna use a cold color, and I'm gonna do more rounded shapes in my background. Okay, so really classic again, bubbles. I'll drop a big bubble here all the way through the piece as my background. Okay, and I'll come through and I'll fill this all in. Alright, cool. I'm gonna touch this up a bit and I'll put it back on when I'm done. But that's basically the gist of it, and I can break it down more as when we come back. Okay, so that's it there. So again, we started with a basic tag. We did our bar structure. Okay, we picked our fill colors. We decided to do the warm analogous colors, so orange, red, orange, yellow. Okay, we picked our interior idea. Our concept was flames. You could do bubbles, you could do whatever you want, and I balanced it out throughout the piece. Then I outlined it, and then I had my background or force field. So my background again is contrasting my foreground, which is my letters, so it's pushing it forward. So here I have blue bubbles, right? And I added some more blue bubbles. Notice too, like I chose 3 colors in my fill, so I tried to balance it out by doing 3 colors in my background as well. Always drop your name, you know, sign it off. This is a quick version of it. Piecing, you know, I've spent hours drawing a single liter piece. You know, I've painted pieces that take me 2 days. So have fun with it. Don't put too much pressure on making it look a certain way. Just try and like think about your concept as you're drawing it and trying to stick to your idea. Sometimes I feel like you get overwhelmed and you start adding 100 things to it, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh man, I should have stopped like 20 steps ago. And like, I've been there, you know. So I mean, maybe you're like me and you're not gonna take my advice, and like you're gonna have to learn for yourself. But it took me a long time to understand that simplicity is a lot more complicated than trying to go crazy wild style from the jump. Yeah, so that's what I have for a piece. Hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you guys later. That's the class. I hope you learned something. Again, these are all tools that you can continue to work on and build on. Graffiti to me and tagging is super essential. It's the birthplace of it all, and you need to really understand this foundation to move forward in your graffiti. It's never like I'll do it once and I'll master it and I'll learn it. It's a life process of like practicing and trying and screwing up and failing and like learning what you like and learning what you don't like and learning how to apply that to your life. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Peace.